was listening to a recording of yours the other day, and you were saying that the person was talking about a car, and you were saying you think the car that's in your garage was assembled by different people with different parts across the country and kind of came together in your garage. But you were saying vibrationally, that's not an accurate statement. And then you kind of didn't go forward. But it kind of spurred my curiosity if you could describe, almost like a science teacher, what reality is actually like constructed of and how the vibration actually comes together, and if quantum physics is actually an accurate description of collapsing probabilities of everything existing in one place and time.
Yeah. So we're going to start in a general and easier to hear phrase: turning thoughts to things, or thoughts turning to things, or vibrations becoming matter. Everything is about focus. Focus is a tool that most people do not understand, because most people are living in an action-oriented world where it's easy to understand how there could be manufacturers of parts and then gatherers of parts and then assemblers of parts. It's easy to take it from the into the manifestation once you've got physical stuff. But it's harder to understand how that stuff is coming about. Where is it coming from? There are no resources that are being piped in from other planets. Where is all of this that is coming from? And we say it's coming from ideas that are focused upon until the cooperative components are gathered. So it is a gradual assembling of things. Now we know that's logical, not really a good answer to your question, but it's a good place to start. So we would like, for the sake of continuity in what we've got going on here, we'd like to talk about gestation period. We'd like to talk about the movement, the process of vibrations becoming more and more in terms of momentum. Momentum and substance are not quite the same word, but they sort of kind of are. In other words, the more focus, the more momentum. The more focus and contradiction, the more resistance, the slower. That's something that in your physics you already understand. So the more something is focused upon without contradiction, then the more momentum happens, and the more attraction power happens, and the more cooperative components are assembled. And so in this non-physical realm, start again. Physicality is a diversion for most people because they have come to know their physical senses, which are translators of vibration, but they are born with it, so good at it that they don't even know that what you see with your eyes is a vibrational interpretation. What you hear with your ears is a vibrational interpretation. And so everything is vibrational, and the more it is focused upon, then the more momentum it gathers, the more comes to it, until it becomes something that someone can perceive. So we're talking about creation as perception. We're talking about thoughts turning to things. At what point does a human tune with enough precision that he can see something that's forming in the ethers before it has become parts in a manufacturing place? And that really is, you've hit right up on the essence of what we are teaching here. It really is what we want you all to become more familiar with. We want you to set an intention. We'll come back to the specifics of your question. We want you to set an intention and feel maybe the awkwardness of it. And then we want you to clarify it and calibrate to it in the way your inner being has already done, until it doesn't feel awkward to you. And then we want you to notice that you actually can begin to witness manifestations along the way that most people don't witness. Like an idea comes to you, or an impulse to go here, or an impulse to watch that, or an impulse to read this. In other words, it is magnificent the way things come together, the way humans merge with one another. But a lot of it is just what you're describing. It is the momentum of the thought becoming significant enough that it can be actualized by the perception of those of you who are the perceivers of this time and space reality. You think that there are all kinds of things around you, and what there is a vibrational grid that you are all filling in with the specifics of your own desires. And so we really like it when something that you want is absent from your life experience, and you find a way to find the essence of it anyway, the feeling of it anyway, the realness of it anyway, until it bursts into your experience, always in some logical way. Nothing can come that is not in a logical format, because you won't allow it. That's why, as more and more come to understand that it really is about focus and not contradiction, how do you explain how your Earth and other planets are spinning in perfect proximity to one another? In other words, those are really big thoughts that humans from their physical perspective can barely contemplate. You can barely acknowledge that it's happening. When you talk about electricity, no one understands it. You know what you can do with it, but you don't understand where it comes from. You don't understand what it is about, but you've managed to turn that frequency with enough momentum and enough ideas that came to enough inspired people that you've turned it into something that is a functioning reality that everyone accepts. You are flip switchers, but you are not understanders of electricity. And so it's like that.
So there's always a logical progression in that idea of parts coming together, but if reality...
Stay there just for a little bit, because we liked your phrase so much. There is a logical coming together that in one moment the idea hasn't come to you, but as you maintained a frequency that did not disallow it and did allow it, then the logic occurred to you. It's like you have to think about how some pick up on the logic and others don't. And it's because they're in the vibrational vicinity. They've come far enough that the next step is logical to them, while it would be illogical to a lot. Just wanted to stick that in there, because we really want you. Esther had an experience recently where a decision that was already in her vortex started coming out in the open where she could see it more. And at first it was off-putting to her because it didn't seem like something that was a good idea. But the more vivid it became, the more she understood it. And it's like that. It's coming into your awareness. Here's a phrase, we'll throw it out and then we want to hear from you. It's all kinds of things are being revealed to you. So, are you realizing them? And if you're not in the vibrational vicinity, you're not. So it's like it's not happening. So it's like it's a reality that isn't happening for you because you're not realizing it. You realize things by getting into the vibrational vicinity. That's why when you set an intention, Esther's favorite one is her hairdresser. Esther, find me a boyfriend. Esther, find me a boyfriend. Esther, find me a boyfriend. And Esther would say, not for me to do, for you to attract. You're so beautiful. I know it's on the way. For a long, long time, find me a boyfriend. Find me a boyfriend. And then one day, Esther, I met someone. And for Esther, it was thrilling that it wasn't there, 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 then it was there. And that's more easy for you to accept because it sounds like someone's just walking into the space, but it is all the same thing until the readiness to perceive it is there. You're zigging and zagging. You are the creators. You are the actualizers. You are the perceivers. You are the matchers of the reality that you allow yourself to experience.
So given that as the baseline, I can change what's logical in terms of timelines and how stuff come together.
For sure. Because what most people would call logical is what already is. That's as far as their logic goes. That's why we're stretching you. That's why we say, here you are in your physical bodies, sure enough, but there's another non-physical part of you. Oh, there's another non-physical part of you. Well, that seems odd. Well, you came from somewhere. Well, I can accept that. There must be something from which we have come. And as we can get you to acknowledge that there is a non-physical part of you who has a perception, and then we can have enough discussions that you are willing to at least try to calibrate to the frequency of your inner being, then what feels like magic to you starts happening in your world. You begin to notice that I barely thought about that. Here's our best demonstration of this. We know you've heard it, but we're going to do it anyway. There was a woman years ago when Esther was allowing consultations over the telephone. And a woman wasn't having any of it. She wanted a crystal ball. She wanted a reading. She didn't want to learn how to create. And so we changed the focus a little bit, and we said, well, let's talk about something else just for a little bit. Let's talk about blue glass. She didn't want to, but we did. We talked about blue glass. We defined it. Lots of different textures, lots of different densities. Some of it you can see right through, some of it you can't. She wasn't having any of it. So then we said, well, then let's talk about butterflies. We were annoying her for sure. Talked about butterflies in all of their varieties. Let's talk about feathers. So we spent some time on each of those, and she, in unhappiness, said goodbye. And Esther, when she's receiving, sort of kind of gets it, but she was not really hearing it, and no one else was in the room. Jerry was in another part of the house. And then they were in California. They went down to La Jolla to have lunch at George's. And when they got out of the car, they started walking past some shops, and Esther just had this impulse that was really uncontrollable. She liked shops, but this one was strong. And she dragged Jerry into this shop, and he said, what are you looking for? Aren't you hungry? And she said, I'm hungry, but let's just look for a minute. And they walked deep, deep, deep into a shop, weirdly deep into a shop. And in the back room, there was a wall of blue glass, ceiling to floor, wall to wall. And Jerry said, want some? Esther said, no. Do you? No. But there it was, and it didn't register with Esther anything. And so they went on their way. They had lunch, and after lunch, they made their way down to the cove, it's called, in La Jolla. Beautiful big rocks. And as they were walking across a big grassy park-like area, a flurry of butterflies just surrounded them, so intense that they had to do the rare thing of stop talking to each other so that they didn't eat butterflies. And when the butterflies parted, Jerry said, look, that little boy looks like he knows us. And a little boy was running toward them and handed Esther a feather. And in that moment, she realized blue glass and butterflies and feather that not very long ago had been activated in her bag of marbles. We weren't talking about a bag of marbles then, and within a very short time, because none of that was anything that Esther had any contradictory thought about, manifested, active in her vibration, and the universe delivered it. And so when something really matters to you, when you've been missing it for a while or writhing in discomfort over something for a while, it's not easy to change the way you're looking at it. But if you are able to change the way you're looking at it, and you accomplish the relief of releasing resistance, it's like stepping out of the harsh sunlight into the shade. It's just that feeling of relief, just out of the harshness of something into the relief of something else. So once you get the hang of that, then blue glass butterflies, and they show up for you immediately.